Well, people, yes, it's Bob. I'm going to read you a story, short story, it's not long, from this book. Home for Christmas and Other Stories by Scott Young. You all know who Scott Young is, right? Used to be a newspaper man. And he has a son by the name of Neil. Yeah, well, let's read the story, okay? Here we go. You ready? Glad tidings from the paperboy. Once there was a boy of 13 who had the Globe and Mail paper route on Brookdale Avenue in North Toronto, between Yonge Street and Avenue Road. He was a tall, thin boy who did not like getting up at 6 every morning, any more than you would, madam. But his paper route brought him about $8 a week, and that he did like. And also, once he was up and out, there were certain other things that he liked. Often the only people he saw in the mornings were other paper boys. And although they did not know one another at all, they sometimes whistled and waved from one street to another across an empty stretch of the city. It is always good to know that one is not alone. Globe and Mail boys work on Christmas morning too, you know. Many of them are still young enough that they pass by the silent Christmas trees on their way out and look at the piles of parcels, but then press on hoping that when they get home, there will be others up. That was the way it was with this one back there around the Christmas of 1958. It was odd that morning, he told me later. All the sights and sounds with which he had become quite familiar had been suspended. There was one man on Brookdale who always was up in the winter shoveling his driveway. It would be awfully still some mornings, and I could hear him more than a block away. Scrape, swish, scrape, swish. Sometimes he would say hello to me, but sometimes he would just keep his head down while I passed. On this Christmas morning, the house of the inveterate snow shoveler was quiet and still, a day off. At another house, there was always a girl up practicing piano. The piano was in the living room. The windows looked out on the veranda with the width of the house. She would have one light on above the piano while her metronome. She must have known sometimes that I was there because I would come up on the veranda to drop the paper, although I never threw it against the door or anything like I did sometimes at other houses. I would glance in and she would be sitting there wrapped up in what she was doing. I would just glance. I wouldn't stand there looking, but she never once looked up. On this Christmas morning, that house was quiet. 2. No light on above the piano, no girl. I used to like looking in at the Christmas trees, the paperboy said. All the week before Christmas, every morning there would be new ones, big or small, each one changing as more presents or decorations were added. I liked the ones where the lights had been left on all night. It was through one of those front windows on that Christmas morning that he saw the little boy. The tree lights were on, and by their glow he could see a kid in sleepers hunkered down on his haunches the way children can do it, his hands on his knees. The little boy was alone in the sleeping house, just looking, and his eyes could be seen, with a look in them of wonder and excitement. He didn't move when the paperboy came up on the veranda and saw him, and dropped the paper quietly at the door. Then the paperboy, long and thin, his toque pulled low over his ears, moved silently to the front corner of the house, as close as he could get to the little boy and still be out of sight. Ho, ho, ho! The paperboy laughed as loudly as he could. Ho, ho, ho! The little boy inside ran to the front window and stared into the sky, his eyes bigger than ever. The paperboy tiptoed away, a minute later and finished his deliveries. There's a picture of the paperboy peeking in the window. Are there still paperboys and paper girls today at this time delivering newspapers in the morning? Are there still such a thing? I wonder. I don't know if there is or not. Well, anyway, there's a short little story. Yeah, I hope you liked it. It's by Scott Young. Merry Christmas, everyone.